May 15, 2019, Seattle, Washington. Jennifer Walsh was 42 years old when she boarded the Pacific Princess for a 7-day cruise to Alaska. She had saved for 3 years to afford the trip. A divorced mother of 2 grown children, she worked as a middle school librarian in Portland, Oregon. This was supposed to be her fresh start. She was so excited about that cruise, recalled her sister, Michelle Walsh Parker. She'd been through a rough divorce. She kept saying she needed to do something just for herself. Jennifer had never been on a cruise before. She had never been to Alaska. She boarded the ship that Wednesday afternoon with a single suitcase and a new journal she planned to fill with memories. What she didn't know was that she would never make it home. The Pacific Princess departed Seattle at 5 in the evening. Jennifer stood on her balcony and watched the city skyline fade into the distance. The ship carried 2,200 passengers. Most were couples or families. Jennifer was traveling alone. She had dinner that first night in the main dining room. The maitre d' seated her at a table with 7 other solo travelers. That's where she met Kenneth Manzanares. He was 41, tan, well-dressed, with an easy smile. He introduced himself as Ken. He said he was from Utah, recently separated, trying to clear his head. They hit it off right away, said Patricia Rodriguez, another passenger at their table. He was charming, very attentive to her. He seemed like a nice guy. The ship sailed north through the night. By morning, they would reach their first port of call in Ketchikan. But Jennifer didn't sleep much that first night. She sat on her balcony and wrote in her journal. The air was cold and smelled like salt water. She felt hopeful for the first time in years. May 16, 2019. Ketchikan appeared through morning fog, a small town clinging to steep hillsides. Jennifer met Ken for breakfast. They decided to explore the port together. They walked through Creek Street, the historic boardwalk district. They watched bald eagles circling overhead. Ken bought her coffee at a local cafe. She texted me that morning, Michelle remembered. She said she'd met someone. She sent me a photo of them together. She seemed happy. The photo showed Jennifer and Ken standing in front of a totem pole. Jennifer was smiling. Ken had his arm around her shoulders. They looked like any other couple on vacation. They returned to the ship that afternoon. The Pacific Princess departed at 4. Ken suggested they have dinner together again. Jennifer agreed. This time they ate in one of the specialty restaurants. Ken ordered wine. They talked about their lives, their divorces, their children. He told her he was a pharmaceutical sales rep, said Detective Sarah Chen of the Alaska State Troopers, who later investigated the case. He said he traveled frequently for work. He seemed successful, stable. He knew exactly what to say. After dinner, they walked the promenade deck. The sun was still up, even though it was after 9. Alaska in May stays light until nearly midnight. Ken held Jennifer's hand. He told her she was beautiful. He said he felt like they'd known each other forever. Jennifer had heard lines like this before. She was cautious. But something about Ken felt different. He seemed genuine. He listened when she talked. He didn't push for anything physical. He was patient. They said goodnight outside her cabin. Ken kissed her cheek. He asked if they could spend the next day together in Juneau. Jennifer said yes. May 17, 2019. Juneau, Alaska. The ship docked at 7 in the morning. Jennifer and Ken met for breakfast and then took a shore excursion to Mendenhall Glacier. They rode in a bus with 40 other tourists. The glacier was massive and blue-white, calving icebergs into the lake below. I saw them on that tour, said Mark Sullivan, a passenger from California. They seemed very into each other, very couple-like, even though they'd just met. They ate lunch at a restaurant downtown. Ken kept ordering drinks. He was drinking more than Jennifer noticed at first. She had 2 glasses of wine. Ken had 4. But he didn't seem drunk. He held his alcohol well. That's when he first mentioned his cabin. He said it was bigger than hers. It had a better view. He asked if she wanted to see it. Jennifer hesitated. It felt too soon. But Ken didn't pressure her. He said maybe another time. He smiled and changed the subject. Jennifer felt relieved. She liked that he didn't push. They returned to the ship at 4. Ken suggested they meet for dinner again. Jennifer wanted to shower and change first. She went back to her cabin alone. She called Michelle. She sounded different that time, Michelle said, still excited but also nervous. She asked me if I thought she was being stupid. I told her to be careful. I told her she'd just met this guy. Jennifer showered and changed into a dress. She met Ken at the Italian restaurant on the Lido deck. He was already drinking when she arrived. He'd started without her. This time he seemed different, more intense, more forward. I remember seeing them that night, said Carla Martinez, a bartender on the ship. He was drinking heavily. She seemed uncomfortable. I could tell she was trying to slow him down. Ken reached across the table and took Jennifer's hand. He told her he was falling for her. He said he'd never felt this way before. He said she was special. Jennifer smiled but said they should take things slow. Ken's expression darkened for just a moment. Then the smile returned. After dinner, Ken insisted they go to his cabin. He said he just wanted to talk somewhere quiet. The dining room was too loud, too crowded. Jennifer could smell the alcohol on his breath. Something in her stomach tightened. But she didn't want to be rude. She didn't want to hurt his feelings. She told herself she was being paranoid. They took the elevator to Deck 9. May 17th, 2019. 10:47 p.m. Ken's cabin was a suite with a large balcony. Much nicer than Jennifer's inside cabin. He poured them both drinks from his minibar. Jennifer barely touched hers. Ken drank his quickly and poured another. He sat next to her on the couch. Too close. He put his hand on her knee. Jennifer moved away slightly. Ken noticed. His jaw tightened. "You don't like me?" he asked. "I do," Jennifer said. "I just think we should—" "Should what?" Ken interrupted. "Take it slow? That's what you keep saying. Take it slow." His voice had changed. The charm was gone. Jennifer stood up. She said she should go. It was getting late. Ken stood too. He blocked her path to the door. He said she wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. They needed to talk. Jennifer's heart started pounding. She tried to move past him. Ken grabbed her wrist. "Let go," Jennifer said. Ken pulled her close. He tried to kiss her. Jennifer turned her head away. She pushed against his chest. Ken's grip tightened. He was hurting her wrist. "You've been leading me on?" Ken said. 3 days of this, smiling at me, holding my hand. Now you act like I'm some kind of creep?" Jennifer realized she'd made a mistake. A terrible mistake. She should have listened to that feeling in her stomach. She should have stayed in her own cabin. She tried to stay calm. She said she wasn't leading him on. She said she just wanted to be friends first. Ken laughed. It wasn't a nice sound. He said he didn't spend 3 days and hundreds of dollars to be friends. He pulled her toward the bedroom. Jennifer tried to scream. Ken put his hand over her mouth. "What happened in that cabin is still being investigated," Detective Chen explained. "We know there was a struggle. We know Jennifer fought back. The crime scene indicated she fought very hard." Jennifer managed to bite Ken's hand. He swore and released her. She ran for the door, but Ken was faster. He grabbed her from behind and dragged her toward the balcony. Jennifer screamed as loud as she could. She hoped someone would hear through the walls. Ken hit her across the face. Her vision went white. The balcony door was already open. Night air rushed in. They were 9 decks above the ocean. The ship was traveling at 22 knots through Alaskan waters. The temperature outside was 47 degrees. The water was 39 degrees. Jennifer grabbed the doorframe. Ken pried her fingers loose. She scratched his face. Drew blood. He cursed and slammed her head against the glass door. Jennifer felt her legs go weak. She couldn't see clearly. Everything was spinning. Ken lifted her. Jennifer was 5'4" and weighed 130 pounds. Ken was 6'2" and strong. He carried her to the railing. "Please," Jennifer managed to say. "Please don't." Ken didn't respond. He lifted her over the railing. For a moment, Jennifer hung there, suspended between the ship and the void. She could see the black water below. She could hear the ship's engines. She thought about her children. She thought about Michelle. Then Ken let go. May 17th, 2019. 11:03 p.m. Jennifer hit the water at approximately 60 miles per hour. The impact broke 3 ribs and fractured her collarbone. The cold was immediate and shocking. Her body went into cold shock response. She couldn't breathe properly. She couldn't feel her legs. The Pacific Princess was already 200 yards away. Its lights were blazing. Jennifer tried to scream but swallowed water instead. She went under. The ocean pulled her down. Her dress and shoes dragged her deeper. Survival time in water that cold is typically 20 to 40 minutes, explained Dr. Robert Hayes, a specialist in maritime medicine. Most people don't die from drowning. They die from hypothermia or cold shock. The body simply shuts down. Jennifer fought her way back to the surface. She kicked off her shoes. She couldn't feel them anyway. Her hands were already going numb. She tried to float on her back the way she'd learned in swimming lessons 30 years ago. The ship was getting farther away. She was alone in the ocean. She thought about giving up. It would be easier, faster. But she thought about her children again. She thought about her sister. She couldn't let this be how her story ended. She couldn't let Ken win. Jennifer started swimming, not toward the ship. That was impossible. But she swam to stay afloat, to keep her blood moving, to stay conscious. She counted her breaths. In and out, in and out. Stay alive. Just stay alive. On the Pacific Princess, Ken Manzanares returned to his cabin. He closed the balcony door. He noticed blood on his hands. Jennifer's blood and his own from where she'd scratched him. He washed his hands in the bathroom sink. He looked at his face in the mirror. 3 deep scratches down his left cheek. He needed a story. He thought about what to say, how to explain the scratches. He couldn't hide them. People would ask questions. He poured himself another drink and sat on the couch. He tried to think. The room smelled like Jennifer's perfume. That made him angry all over again. At 11:14 p.m., Ken called the front desk. He said there had been an accident. He said his girlfriend had been drinking and fallen overboard. He said he tried to grab her but couldn't hold on. He said it happened so fast. He started crying. It sounded genuine. The ship's alarm system activated immediately. The Pacific Princess began a man-overboard turn. Searchlights swept the water. All available crew members rushed to their stations. The captain radioed the Coast Guard. They were 92 miles from Juneau. "Time is critical in these situations," said Captain David Morrison, who has 30 years of cruise ship experience. "Every minute that passes, the person drifts farther. The search area expands exponentially. In cold water, you're racing against hypothermia. The ship completed its turn and began searching its wake. Coast Guard helicopters launched from Juneau. Other ships in the area joined the search. But it was night. The water was black. The swells were 6 feet high. Finding one person in that vastness was nearly impossible. Jennifer heard the ship's horn, 3 long blasts, the man overboard signal. She tried to scream. No sound came out. Her throat was too cold. She saw searchlights sweeping back and forth. They were looking for her. She tried to swim toward the lights. Her arms barely moved. She couldn't feel them anymore. The hypothermia was taking hold. Jennifer's core temperature was dropping. Her body was shutting down non-essential systems to protect her heart and brain. She was shivering violently. Then the shivering stopped. That was worse. That meant she was in severe hypothermia. She went under again. This time she didn't fight to surface. The water was warmer below, quieter. She felt tired, so tired. She wanted to sleep. May 18th, 2019. 12:41 a.m. Coast Guard Helicopter 6025 spotted something in the water, a dark shape among the swells. Pilot Lieutenant James Park descended for a closer look. It was a person, female, face down, not moving. We didn't think she was alive, Park later testified. The water temperature, the time elapsed. It had been 93 minutes since the initial call. That's beyond the survival window. The helicopter couldn't land. They deployed a rescue swimmer. Petty Officer Michael Torres hit the water with his harness line attached. He reached Jennifer in 30 seconds. He turned her over. Her lips were blue. Her eyes were closed. He couldn't find a pulse. Torres called for the basket. He secured Jennifer and gave the signal. The helicopter crew lifted them both from the water. Inside the helicopter, flight medic Anna Kowalski began CPR immediately. No pulse, no breathing. Body temperature approximately 79 degrees Fahrenheit. Severe hypothermia. "We're trained not to give up," Kowalski said. "The saying is nobody's dead until they're warm and dead. Hypothermia can preserve the brain. We've seen people survive after appearing deceased." Kowalski continued CPR. She wrapped Jennifer in emergency blankets. She started an IV line. The helicopter raced toward Juneau. 16 minutes to the hospital. Torres took over compressions when Kowalski's arms got tired. They counted out loud. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. At 1:07 a.m., they landed at Bartlett Regional Hospital. Jennifer was rushed into the ER. Dr. Michael Chen took over resuscitation. The trauma team worked for 43 minutes. They used a warming protocol for severe hypothermia. They continued CPR. They shocked her heart 3 times with the defibrillator. At 1:50 a.m., Jennifer's heart started beating on its own. Faint, but present. The team stabilized her. She was transferred to the ICU. She remained unconscious. She was alive. Barely. On the Pacific Princess, Ken Manzanares was in the ship's security office. He was telling his story to Security Chief Thomas Grant and to an FBI agent who had boarded by helicopter. Ken said Jennifer had been drinking all day. He said she went out on the balcony to get air. He said she leaned too far over the railing. He said he tried to grab her, but she slipped through his hands. His story had problems from the start, said FBI Special Agent Rachel Morrison. His timeline didn't match the cabin steward's reports. The blood evidence didn't support his version, and those scratches on his face. Those were defensive wounds. The ship's doctor photographed Ken's injuries. 3 parallel scratches, deep, consistent with fingernails. Ken said Jennifer scratched him during the fall, when he tried to hold on to her. The doctor noted that the scratches appeared fresh, within the last 2 hours. At 2:15 a.m., the FBI agent placed Ken under shipboard detention. He was not formally arrested yet, but he was confined to his cabin with a security guard outside. The agent secured the cabin balcony as a crime scene. The CSI team would process it when the ship docked in Juneau later that morning. In the ICU, Jennifer remained unconscious. Her body temperature had risen to 89 degrees. Her heart was beating regularly, but she had suffered oxygen deprivation. The doctors didn't know yet if there was brain damage. They didn't know if she would ever wake up. May 18th, 2019, 8 a.m. The Pacific Princess docked in Juneau 4 hours early. FBI agents and Alaska state troopers boarded immediately. Ken was formally arrested and charged with attempted murder. Passengers were held on board for 6 additional hours while investigators conducted interviews. The passengers were shocked, Detective Chen recalled. Most of them had no idea anything had happened. They thought it was just a tragic accident. Learning it was attempted murder changed everything. Patricia Rodriguez, the woman from the dining table, was interviewed by agents. She told them about Jennifer and Ken's first meeting, about how charming he seemed. She cried when they told her Jennifer had been found alive. "I felt guilty," Patricia said, "like I should have warned her. But about what? He seemed normal. He seemed nice. You can't always tell." At Bartlett Regional Hospital, Jennifer regained consciousness at 9:23 a.m. She was confused and terrified. She didn't remember being rescued. The last thing she remembered was the water closing over her head. When doctors told her where she was, she started crying. Michelle arrived on the first flight from Portland. She'd been awake all night after the Coast Guard called her. She'd thought Jennifer was dead. When she saw her sister alive in that hospital bed, she broke down. She was so pale, Michelle remembered, covered in bruises, shaking even though the room was warm. But she was alive. That's all that mattered. Jennifer couldn't talk much at first. Her throat was damaged from the salt water. Her body was recovering from severe hypothermia. But she managed to tell the police what happened. She described the attack. She identified Ken Manzanares. She confirmed he threw her overboard deliberately. Her testimony was crucial, Special Agent Morrison explained. Without her alive to tell us what happened, the case would have been much harder to prove. It could have been ruled an accident or suicide. FBI forensics processed Ken's cabin. They found Jennifer's blood on the balcony railing. They found more blood near the door where she'd been hit. They found signs of a struggle throughout the cabin. They collected DNA evidence from under Jennifer's fingernails. The scratches she left on Ken's face matched her DNA profile. Ken refused to speak without a lawyer. He was transferred to federal custody. The charge was attempted murder on the high seas. Federal jurisdiction because the crime occurred in international waters. Potential sentence of 20 years to life. The Pacific Princess continued its cruise the next day. Jennifer remained hospitalized in Juneau for 8 days. She was treated for hypothermia, broken ribs, a fractured collarbone, and a concussion. She developed pneumonia from the water in her lungs. She spent 3 weeks total in Alaska before she was medically cleared to fly home. The physical injuries healed. Jennifer's therapist, Dr. Linda Sherman, later explained. But the psychological trauma was severe. PTSD, anxiety, nightmares. She had trouble trusting anyone. She was afraid to leave her house. January 2020. Kenneth Manzanares' trial began in federal court in Anchorage. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. The crime scene photos, the DNA match, the testimony from Coast Guard rescuers, Jennifer's detailed account of the attack. The defense argued that Ken was extremely intoxicated, that he didn't remember what happened, that maybe it was an accident after all. The jury didn't buy it. They deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: attempted murder, assault, making false statements to federal agents. At sentencing in March 2020, Jennifer gave a victim impact statement. It was the first time she'd seen Ken since that night on the ship. She looked directly at him as she spoke. "You tried to kill me because I said no to you," Jennifer said. Her voice was steady. "You thought I was disposable. You thought you could throw me away like garbage. But I survived. I'm here. And I'm making sure everyone knows what you did." Ken stared at the table in front of him. He didn't look at her. The judge sentenced him to 30 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. Ken would be 71 when he was released. Jennifer walked out of the courtroom with Michelle by her side. She didn't look back. Today, Jennifer Walsh is 48 now. She still lives in Portland. She still works as a librarian. She's written a book about her experience called Overboard: How I Survived. She speaks at conferences about cruise ship safety and violence against women. "I almost died," Jennifer said in a recent interview. "For 93 minutes, I was alone in the ocean thinking I would never see my family again. But I survived. And now I use my voice to help other women recognize warning signs, to trust their instincts." The cruise industry has implemented new safety measures since Jennifer's case. Enhanced security cameras on balconies, automatic man overboard detection systems, better crew training for domestic violence situations. Jennifer doesn't take credit for these changes, but she knows her case helped push them forward. Michelle says Jennifer is different now. Stronger in some ways, more cautious in others. She doesn't date. She doesn't trust easily. But she's alive. She's healing. She's here. "That's what matters," Michelle said. "She's here. She gets to see her children graduate college. She gets to be an aunt to my kids. She gets to have a future. That monster tried to take that from her, but she wouldn't let him." Jennifer still thinks about that night sometimes. The cold water, the darkness, the certainty that she was going to die. But she also thinks about the Coast Guard crew who saved her, the hospital staff who brought her back, her sister who never gave up hope. "I was lucky," Jennifer said. "So many women in similar situations don't survive. I survived, and I have a responsibility to tell my story, to warn others, to keep fighting." She's never been on another cruise. She probably never will. But she hasn't let fear control her life. She travels, she works, she lives. She refuses to be a victim. She's a survivor. And Kenneth Manzanares is in prison where he belongs.